Empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is Thursday. It is Indiana week. Our guys are grinding along. They have a lot of things to fix, a lot of things to get better. A lot of these guys need to get healthier. A lot of these guys need to play better. And we are moving towards the Big Blue, Michigan, the game everyone's worried about. We're going to talk a little bit about how we are going to affect their running game this year. Some adjustments that have been made by Jim Knowles in the defense to stymie the running game. So you want to stay tuned for that. Nevadabuck and I are going to break that down. But first, as always, thank you for subscribing to this channel, for liking the videos, for commenting below. Comment, what player needs to step up versus Michigan? Is it Tommy Eichenberg? Is it Tyleek Williams? There's some really good candidates in there. Is it, a big D tackle, Mike Hall to clog the middle? Is it, Cody Simon? He's probably going to play more against Michigan than he will all year. We're looking to see a lot of 3 linebacker looks based on their fronts and what they do on offense. I think we're going to be in 3 linebackers a lot, but we are going to get to that. So as always, thank you guys for liking this video. In the comments down below, give me some names. Also, shout out where you're from. We love when you do that. Read every comment. Appreciate you guys as always. That being said, going to bring in my good friend, Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Getting excited. It's championship time. We're getting ready to take the drive for the big 3-week step up to the Michigan game, and got a nice one against Indiana this weekend. But all eyes are on Big Blue here in 3 weeks, and can't wait. Wish that game was tomorrow.
I do too. From the players' perspective, those kids have been beaten down for how poorly they performed last year up in Ann Arbor. I guess it's one thing to lose, but when you just get dominated on the ground, the way they ran the ball on us, that's like a different type of loss. They're not all created equal. If a team can run the ball, it will. It kind of takes your manhood, and I think that really resonated with a lot of Ohio State supporters that have been really hard on these kids. Nevada, we're going to get into some film in a second. What are some things that you think Jim Knowles is going to do to adjust? Give me the three things you think he's going to do to adjust versus this Michigan offense that basically the scheme is exactly the same as last year.
Well, I think, look, there's 3 items that I think are going to be really important, really going to be key in this game. And the first one, people may scoff at this, but I think this is absolutely a real thing. Is I've seen studies that they talk about crowd noise and playing on the road, and how offenses react differently. And I think the reaction time for offenses is anywhere from like 0.2 to 0.3 seconds slower on the road when it's loud than when you're playing at home. And I think that's something. I think getting off the ball when you're on the road, crowd's going crazy, you're having trouble hearing cadence, you're having trouble changing formations. That better than anybody. You've played in some of the most hostile environments imaginable, and I think the crowd is going to be a huge factor, especially for a running team like Michigan, where it's really key for them to get off the ball fast, to dominate that line of scrimmage. I think they're going to be getting off the ball a little bit slower, and I think that's going to be a thing that's really going to affect them. I've been saying the whole year as I looked at the schedule with Michigan, they haven't played a significant road game in this type of environment the entire season. And I think it's really going to be a shock to the system. I don't think they really have an idea of what they're going to be walking into, and I think the crowd's going to be a big factor, going to really help the defense out for one. So I guess I'll leave it at one for now and ask you. I know we've talked about the whiteout up in Penn State ad nauseum before, but does playing on the road as an offensive tackle, does playing on the road affect your get off and how you can drive on the ball and dominate the line of scrimmage?
It does to varying degrees. Obviously, it depends on the volume of the loudness, because obviously Indiana isn't the same as at Penn State at night. Even at Penn State at noon isn't the same as at Penn State at night. So it definitely, especially early in the game when it's 0-0, teams think they have a chance. When you played in the big house twice, one up there twice. It is loud to start the game. You really have to focus. I think sometimes people don't realize how much communication goes on. I think offenses have been simplified from when I played, so there's not as much communicating. There's not as much changing. Like Nick Mangold could literally change the entire protection if he needed to, and if you can't hear what he says, that's a big problem. So you got to have your guard get the call from the center, and the guard's got to tell it to you. And again, like there's always a point when there's communication. It's like playing the game telephone, where it starts off as one thing and it goes around to the end of the table and it's something completely different. So that's kind of what you deal with when you're on the road sometimes. I think that the crowd is a thing, but it's on our offense to keep that crowd energized and excited, because if we don't score points and we go down a couple scores, all of a sudden the crowd's deflated and people they have PTSD from last year. But I think that it's really on the offense to keep the crowd energized, score touchdowns. It's kind of a snowball effect, in my opinion, when the offense and the crowd play off each other. Because like when 2018, when we scored 62 points in Urban's last game, that place was rocking the whole day, because there's like a bloodlust that comes across our fan base when we're beating Michigan and they want another touchdown and they want another stop and they want a sack and they want to pick. And so big plays really, as I mean, electrify the crowd. Interceptions, sacks, sack fumbles. Like the Zach Bourne play I was in the press box for, and the stadium about fell down when he tackled Devin Gardner on a play that was basically, he just kind of freelance, which you're not generally allowed to do that in defense, but he just went, left the guy free, sacked the guy, and turned into like a play in Ohio State lore. But I think that it's a huge edge being at home. I think that when kids have been beat down for a year, the way our guys have, Ryan Day has been called soft, our program's been called soft, our offensive linemen and defensive linemen have been called soft. When you give up 9.5 yards a carry in the second half, I think that the people can remember those numbers real clear just because they were so incredibly bad. So I think that is that's going to be a major motivator, man. I'm telling you, if there's one thing you can say to piss a football player off, it's calling them soft over and over and over again. And after that game last year, man, that was the reverberating theme about our teams, that we're soft. So you look at who our captains are. We have guys that don't really play a lot, but they're all hard dudes. Court Williams, a hard dude. Tyler Friday, tough guy, a dog. I mean, and those guys are guys that it's like they put all of their chips on. We need tough, no more softies as captains. Like, we're gonna have the toughest guys. So you have Cade Stover, you have Tommy, guys that are just nasty dudes, guys that you'd want to get in a bar fight or an alley fight with, because they're just that mean and tough. And so I think Ryan recognized the lack of toughness maybe in the leadership last year, and he basically did a 180 with who he elected as captains this year.
Yeah, well, it's funny because they've set out the whole year to change the narrative, and I just feel like Michigan's been feeding into this. I mean, there's bulletin board material galore. There's just so many comments about Michigan and about how they're tougher than Ohio State, and they've got the culture. And I know that stuff is already up on the bulletin board, up in the lockers at the Woody Hayes, with directions that everybody knows that it was J.J. McCarthy making those comments. So I think this Ohio State team, not that you ever need extra motivation for that Michigan game, but boy, I think they're going to come out hot, and I think that's going to be a big edge. So I think the home field advantage, that's my first big key in terms of stopping this Michigan defense. My second one is, we got a little glimpse of it last week, but I think we're going to see more of the three linebacker look. I think we're going to see more of Cody Simon. We've talked about Tanner McAllister, moving out, but I think Ohio State's was really effective. Had some success even against Northwestern, running the three linebackers out there, having Steele, Tommy, and Cody out there at the same time. They even went to a four linebacker look at one point and brought out back the 4-4. And so, I think that's going to be the second big key, is Ohio State going bigger, Ohio State going a little bit heavier, and stopping that Michigan run game, which Harbaugh is going to be bound and determined to just run it down our throat, regardless of, to the detriment of anything else. He's going to try to line the ball up, run it down our throat, and take away our soul. And I think the three linebacker look's going to be a big step towards stopping that.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing that really helps you play that, as opposed to the nickel that we play 98% of the time now under Jim Knowles, is that they don't have those old time elite Michigan wide receivers that they used to have. They used to have some guys that were like Braylon Edwards, Mario Manningham, they had guys that would be really difficult to just leave out on an island. And Braylon, when we played Braylon in '04, he had, I don't know if he had 200 yards, but he had pretty close to that. I mean, he had a lot of yardage. Manningham was fantastic when we played against him. They had guys that you're mortified to put out on an island. That was part of Michigan's lore. They always had good wide receivers. Going back to Ty Streets and some of those guys, but they don't have that this year. Again, they're as grounded of a team as I've seen at Michigan. They used to be pretty 50-50 in the olden days, but now they're ground and pound. And again, like I don't mind that, because that style, when you can play good defense and you can run the ball like that's a weatherproof team, and our team, that we're kind of like the Indianapolis Colts, in the mid 2000s with Peyton and those guys. It's like when they were inside it was cool and comfortable. They were unbelievable. When they had to go out in the weather, not quite as good. And that's part of the issue when you become so heavily reliant on throwing the ball, is like, if it's a monsoon, or it's snowy, or it's cold, or whatever, like it's hard to get all of the pieces to click, in the, you got to get the snap, you got to throw the ball, it's windy, the guy's hands are cold, bounces off their hands. I mean, we saw how many drops last week from some guys that generally are remotely reliable playing receiver or tight end for Ohio State. And I think, when all you got to do is hand the ball off to the running back from under center, there's a lot less of a percentage of something going wrong, as opposed to trying to throw it in the wind or catch the snap in the wind or get guys dropping it, whatever. So I think it's going to be a physical game. I think that we've gotten some more physical looks this year. I mean, Ryan Day, one thing that's wildly different between him and Urban, Ryan Day loves running, I call it the hippo set, or Josh Fryer, who's normally an offensive lineman, comes in wearing the number 41 jersey. And they bring in Mitch Rossi, and they sometimes 2-3 tight ends. G. Scott will be in, Cade Stover, Mitch, and then Josh Fryer, and he loves that formation. He loves running it in tight, and I think that that's something that's it's just really good for I think it's good in a twofold way. I think it's good for us to have a physical package like that, but I also think it's good that I know we practice that, and you're going to practice that against the defense, and it gives the defense additional looks at those heavier multiple tight end formations. Because with Urban, we never ran two tight ends. It was always single tight end. We might have had 1% of our offense would have two tight ends in it, but I mean, we were never in two tight ends unless the guy was literally just split out as a wide receiver, which we didn't really have the guys for that. I mean, we had Nick and Jeff Hireman. We didn't have like any super dynamic tight ends. Your third point, Nevada. Let you dig into that, and I'll attack it after you get done with your third point.
Well, my third point is I think we're going to be playing some bare front, and I think they like what they get when they have Zach Harrison and JT and Jack Sawyer on the field at the same time. And I think when they can kind of move them around to the jack, play those 5-man fronts, play that zero coverage, and kind of crowd the line of scrimmage, dare Michigan to throw, I think they're going to show that as well. So I think you're going to see a variety of heavy looks. But it's going to be best players. It's going to be you're going to see more Tyreek Williams. You're going to see more Michael Hall. There's going to be less of a rotation. And because there's going to be a premium placed upon beating those Michigan linemen to the spot, blowing up those plays. And I think of this like many of those times against those great Wisconsin teams that came in with those running backs, and we were able to shut them down by making them one-dimensional, taking away the run crowd in the line of scrimmage, and just daring them to throw. And I just think this is the way this game's going to play out. And we've been waiting for Jack Sawyer to have that big kind of JT breakout type of game, and I think this could be it. I think this could be the one where he makes a couple of big plays, and everybody's like, "Wow, I've been waiting for him to, be the key on one of these turnovers, maybe get a pick six, maybe a deflected pass, something, a huge sack." I think this is going to be kind of not a coming out party for a guy like that, but maybe a time where he makes his high impact party, and couldn't be a better time to do it would be against Michigan.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to see some jack looks that we haven't seen yet. There's some really interesting stuff that Oklahoma State did last year when Jim Knowles was the defensive coordinator. We haven't seen hardly any of it, and I think that it's because we're good enough just to run base defense and cut it out. And even when the waters look a little choppy like last week, Northwestern scored 7 points in the first quarter, and they didn't score again for the rest of the game. And we gave up 200 rushing yards, but it was on 50th. The yards per carry is more important than total yards, because when it takes them 60 carries to get to 200, then I mean you're still pretty efficient, 3.3 a carry or whatever it is. So we're going to go into the film room, look at some of these looks. Now, this was a really good sequence for the defense. This is a 3rd and 1. Obviously, this is kind of a rigged up goal line-ish type defense. The guys aren't even sure how to line up. Cody Simon's kind of late. This is Cody right here. And again, I think he's going to see an enhanced role going forward just because he's got some he's got some big stuff to fill. We were really high on him last year. Both shoulders required massive surgeries. So he's, obviously last year was kind of a wash. He didn't play well. Sometimes I don't think it's fair when we judge players based on, when they're playing with debilitating ailments. And again, I am the last guy to make an excuse for guys, because if you're out there, you're out there, and no one's going to give you, we don't grade on a curve when we're Ohio State fans or Ohio State media, but you could tell that he was laboring pretty good because, basically didn't have any shoulders last year. So got those fixed. He's playing more and more. He's a big reason why Chip Terranium got moved over to offense, is because they felt like they had enough depth between him and EA. EA Gayote, who's number 21. He's been playing a little bit more if you've noticed him. But Nevada, this is a really good sequence here. I'm going to play it a couple times. They run a QB sneak. Again, it's just nice to see this good, firm, physical front. And the interesting thing here is, Tommy Eichenberg loses his helmet, so he has to, 4th and 1, it's 4th and an inch, and you lose your best player on defense. Talk a little bit about this this stop and this point in the game. Here's Tommy losing his helmet down here.
Yeah, well, again, I think it really kind of speaks to what Jim Knowles likes to do. What Jim Knowles likes to do in these types of situations is he likes to bring that kind of that double A gap kind of pressure. He likes to pressure from the inside out. The idea is he's trying to force you to run a play wide. He wants to take away the middle of the field, take away the over the center, take away that run between the center and the guard, or the quarterback sneak up the middle and force you to kind of go lateral. And that's going to be a big question. Will Harbaugh, because Harbaugh is going to line up in 4th and 1, and he's going to try to run. And what he likes to do is he just likes to run that blast right up the middle. Will he do that, or will he try to amend his game and try to do toss sweep, do something to the outside? But you notice this thing's all attacked right up the middle. They're trying to take that away, and that's by design. It's kind of a wedge design, and they did a heck of a job stopping this thing against Northwestern. It was a really good sequence for the Ohio State defense.
Yeah, this is basically a goal line defense. You got this looks like double A gap. It's hard to see from the ceiling. You get your ends. It was interesting. Taraji Mitchell, who I don't know if he's played more than 5 snaps all year in crunch time on defense. The guy that was a captain last year. He's the guy that checked in for Tommy. They moved Cody to the mic, and they put Taraji at Sam. You have EA, you have Steele. It's still a 4 linebacker look. I think that's Ronnie Hickman. That's Ronnie Hickman. At the top edge is that Cody? I think Cody's grappling with 98. It's hard to see these numbers on here. No, that's EA. So EA is up there with 98. So EA is 21. Our transfer from SC, he went to Bishop Gorman in Vegas with Haskell. So he's here. So you have him and Taraj as our 2 edge guys. You got Teron, you got JT. That looks like Zach, I believe. So, but this is, now granted, this is 4th and 1. So obviously this is a little jigged up just because it's, it's basically a goal line defense. But, you're going to see maybe not a wildcat look, which this is, but you're going to see, multiple tight ends. This is like unbalanced. This looks like a tackle, a tight end. This is a super heavy look. But there's no reason Michigan can't do some of this stuff. Their quarterback is really athletic. So he's basically always a run threat. They're not a huge read option team, but they do a lot of misdirection, a lot of counters, a lot of powers, a lot of pulling guards. And I think something that'd be interesting is if they run a true jack front and they have Jack Sawyer follow the guard around, which is something that Jim Knowles did at Oklahoma State. And it really, from an offensive perspective, it's really, really difficult to block that when it's done correctly. And Jack, think about Jack is he's 270, so he's a big dude. He's been real physical in the run. He hasn't hit the sack numbers that he wants. He's been close a lot, but you don't. It's like horseshoes and hand grenades. I don't think we're close matters. Like when you're trying to sack a quarterback, you either get him down or you don't. And Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to, but other guys have been able to get home and get free. And it'd be interesting because, like I said, I talked about those energy plays when you're at home at the Horseshoe, and sacks and interceptions are right at the top. They're right next to touchdowns. But yeah, I look. It'll be interesting to see how much some of the ancillary linebackers play when Michigan goes. Two tight ends and a fullback. Some of those looks like, do we bring in a fourth guy, which would probably be EA, I'd imagine. To go with, I think we're going to see. I think Cody will play more plays against Michigan than he will maybe the rest of the year combined. But this is good. These guys are downhill. They're in their gaps. Good flat backs. This is really good by JT. JT's trying to hold the line as best he can. I mean, it's tough when you're getting. I mean, that guy he's going against is a first round draft pick. So, they're hanging in there against some really really good players. He's like by far their best player. But we got that stop, a 7-7 game, third quarter. And again, this is at home. The top blows off the building, the stadium about falls down. So these are the kind of energy plays, but you see the energy the defense is playing with. The guys are all there. It's really good to see, and I think Jim Knowles gets a lot of the credit for that because, one thing I was critical of last year is I didn't think our guys played with as much effort as needed. I didn't think our guys pursued to the ball. We weren't gap sound. So when you do that against Indiana, you kind of win ugly. When you do that against Michigan, you get your ass kicked. So I mean, this year I think that we're in much better shape against the run. And again, like Jim Knowles has a culture, a philosophy. He loves saying, he says, "Give us a yard," and then the whole defense says, "We'll defend it." Like he's got like these little triggers that he says like a little phrase, and the whole defense knows exactly what to say back to him. And but he ingrains that culture into the defense, and he's going to have that the first taste of the biggest rivalry in football. At the end of November, and I'm super excited to see it. Nevada, you got anything to close this thing out? I'm really excited to see what Jim Knowles can do against the running game against Michigan, because I think that he's going to be the tonic that we need to get this win at the end of November.
No, but I think you're right. I think we are going to see those four linebacker looks, and I think we're going to see EA out there. And they lined him up there defensive end for a reason. They like what he brings from from that spot. He's got the speed to come flat down the line, or for some reason they're going to try to flare him out to try to cover a back or one of those tight ends that's kind of flaring out into the flat. He's fast enough to do that as well. So I would not be surprised to see Ohio State play a liberal amount, almost a standard set is a 4-3, and we've used the 4-4 to great effect in the past. I think we're going to see more of that as well. So I think it's going to be a linebacker game against Michigan. That front eight's going to have to hold up and be stout. And I think Jim Knowles is. I think he's ready. And I think we're going to see some of that worked in here these next couple of weeks as we work on some of these run sets. So count the number of linebackers when the Ohio State defense goes out in the field and see if you notice any of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're going to wrap this thing up. We appreciate you guys. As always, BuckeyeScoop.com is where to find us. We've had some really good intel from this week. Big week coming. Obviously, this is not Michigan. We've got Indiana this week. But some interesting storylines with Kevin Wilson's former job. No love lost between him and that coach. It's going to be really interesting to see how our guys do rebounding from a cold, muggy game out at Evanston. Bad place to play. I think our guys are going to be juiced up, ready to go. For all the latest, BuckeyeScoop.com. We are growing like crazy. It is a blast on there right now. We have a good, clean board. A lot of great people on there. It's a blast. I spend a lot of my time on there. It's a really good place to be at, guys. So if you guys enjoy Ohio State football, if you want the best experience in Ohio State football, join BuckeyeScoop.com. Appreciate you guys. If you enjoyed this content, please leave us a like. Also comment down below who needs to step up to stop the run versus Michigan. I want names, and also shout out where you're from. Appreciate you guys as always. So thank you, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.